Mr. Mueller?
Thank you. Mr. Trenkle, I just wanted to make sure I summarize when we're talking about the excavation. Just to put a bow on it, do you have an opinion whether Mr. Leroy did what he said he did?
Objection, asked and answered, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we're
That
summarizing.
you haven't already covered?
Just summarizing one point, that's all.
Why don't you be specific about what he did what?
In terms of the excavation, do you have an opinion that he actually did that?
Objection, asked and answered, Your Honor.
Summarizing it.
That part has been asked and answered.
I'm just summarizing, Your Honor.
Okay, we don't need the summary.
right.
Thank you.
Mr. Leroy said in his testimony that gasoline can completely be burned up, which is why there's no evidence, zero, of gasoline in his area of origin, the living room. Is that possible?
Possible, but highly unlikely, but absolutely you can't say that because he didn't excavate, so how can he find if there was or was not gasoline there? There was no excavation, so there was no evidence taken and no analysis. You can't just arbitrarily say, well, gee, you must have been consumed in the fire when you didn't even try to find it.
Is there evidence in the rubble that you've seen that would suggest that if there was gasoline, it would have been found? Like in terms of how the material is and whatnot?
I say that it would or would not be is dependent upon the fact that somebody actually tried. I have not seen, if you do an excavation and you have other proofs or, data that suggests that there was an accelerant used, that you find it.
Let's talk about the gasoline on the 100% polyester sweatpants. First of all, just in order to set this up, I want you to look at that big binder there.
This one?
You did an examination of all the clothes in this case,
I did.
and you saw the clothes that was taken out of, you saw these silver cans and whatnot.
I did.
All right. I want you to look at Exhibit M. All the various pages, and just tell us if that represents the clothes and the packages that you saw in your examination.
There are various packages and items that were placed into evidence, which I think they're in this room too, that were recovered. I actually saw most of them, I think, also. Well, no, I didn't see some of these.
Okay, but you saw the evidence and included the sweatpants?
Yes.
All right, move for the admission of Exhibit M. They represent what was presented to us at his inspection.
No objection.
Thank you.
Exhibit M. Did you say M as in mother? Okay.
Mary. Thank you. I want to have you take a look at a couple of the pictures from Exhibit M representing the sweatpants. Are those the sweatpants that you saw?
They appear to be.
Okay. And then this, did you have an understanding of the material that the sweatpants was made out of?
Yes, I do.
100% polyester?
Yes.
Okay. Did you obtain some 100% polyester sweatpants?
I did.
Okay. Did you run a video of a test of an exemplar
Yes.
with and without gasoline?
Yes.
Did you bring a pair of the exemplar 100% polyester sweatpants with you?
I did.
Can I show that to the jury? And I'd like to move for the admission of Exhibit Q.
They're in this bag. I'm going to take them out.
I don't think it's,
As long as the court reads the cautionary instruction.
Thank you. Do you want me to read it now?
Yes,
or-
please.
Right, it's a good time to read it?
let me set up the foundation of the
Okay.
video. The video, you did a video showing ignition of 100% polyester sweatpants with and without gasoline?
Yes,
And how much gasoline did you use?
2 ounces.
Okay. What was it intended to show?
It's intended to show the difference between a fire that is accelerated in the presence of gasoline in the incipient stages, well, it doesn't really ever have an incipient stage, to showing that with a match, our lighter polyester resists burning. If it does, it starts melting as opposed to burning.
Okay. You can go ahead and read the instruction, Your Honor.
Thank you. I will admit the video into
Yes, and
evidence.
let me just
for-
formally move for the admission of exhibits R and S. R without the gasoline, S with the gasoline.
R and S, Mr. Blair, any objection then? I'm going to read the
No.
instruction. Okay. Jury, an instruction for you. This video is being admitted only to illustrate the witness's testimony. The parties agree that the video is not in any way a recreation of the events at issue in this trial. You may only consider this video to help you understand, well, I think there's 2, right? 2 videos here. To help you understand and evaluate the witness's testimony as it relates to how polyester clothing might burn when doused with 2 ounces of gasoline versus how it might burn in the absence of any gasoline. Satisfied?
There was an instruction about the exemplar sweatpants as well.
We had one
Oh,
sentence.
Oh, that's the 2-sentence one. One of you, did you email it?
I did.
Okay, another instruction, jury. The sweatpants you will see in the video are not the same pair of sweatpants involved in this case. They are an exemplar pair of 100% polyester sweatpants, okay? Satisfied, counsel?
Satisfied, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to show
I think we're admitting all
R and S.
R and S, and then he admitted.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
what happened to Q? That's the sweatpants. Q, yours.
Oh, Q, I'm sorry, yes,
Okay,
Q
Q
is
too.
the exemplar.
Okay, and you're good, Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Okay, we'll admit those.
I'm going to show exhibit R without the sweatpants first. Without the gasoline. Okay. Now I'm going to show exhibit S, and tell us what you did.
I took a 4-ounce metal measuring cup and I filled it half full with 2 ounces of gasoline. And then the pants, same situation. And I threw it at it, backed up, and then threw a match
Okay.
and ignited it. Can I make a comment, Your Honor?
Your
Well,
counsel.
I need the picture on there to do it.
You can illustrate what we're talking about.
Well, what I want to do is let the jury see the darkened color by the liquid and then see that that stays last thing to burn because it was still liquid.
And you can see it, what is it doing right now? It's burning and doing what?
And melting and falling to the ground. But I just want, you could see right in the beginning of the picture that when I threw the match, the liquid didn't ignite, everything around it ignited, and that's what I wanted them to see. That would be the first seconds of the video. And as it's continuing now, it's just dripping and burning, you know, because of the presence of the vapors of gasoline. Otherwise, it wouldn't do any of that.
You're showing the pants, but also is the waistband burning?
Yes, the one that's still hanging, you know, on the post, what is really starting to burn is the waistband because that's not polyester. It's a stretching material that is not polyester. So it keeps burning and keeps the other heat enough to have the pants still sort of stay lit.
Okay. Let's talk about Mr. Leroy's opinion that there was an open flame to gasoline, okay?
No. Okay.
Which was the open flame was what he considered an ignition source, remember that?
Yes.
And the gasoline, despite there being no gasoline in the area of origin, right?
Correct.
Okay. Does NFPA talk about that whole concept? First of all, there was no evidence, or did you find any evidence of an ignition source in anything he did?
No.
So what did he do, make one up?
With the evidence he had, he would have.
Speculation, Your Honor. Make one up.
I'll sustain that objection. It calls for speculation.
If you're supplying an ignition source where there is no evidence of it, does NFPA 921 speak to that?
Yes.
Now, you said that gives guidance for everything that investigators are supposed to do?
Yes.
Yeah. First of all, let's look at 23.2.7.3. Can you read that?
23.2.7.3, it should be right next to the one I have, but I guess I'll do my best reading again. The investigator is strongly cautioned against using subjective opinions to support his incendiary cause determination in the absence of physical evidence.
And 19.6.5 tells us,
Identifying the ignition source for a fire by believing to have eliminated all ignition sources found, known, or suspected to have been present in the area of origin and for which no supporting evidence exists is referred to as negative corpus.
okay. And then finally, negative corpus is defined in 4.3.6.1 of NFPA 921. And that tells us what?
Any hypothesis that is incapable of being tested, either physically or analytically, is an invalid hypothesis.
And
A hypothesis developed based on absence of data is an example of a hypothesis that is incapable of being tested.
so NFPA guides us in that. And Mr. Leroy found no evidence of an ignition source, right?
He did not.
And why didn't he? In
Well-
terms of excavation?
Well, he didn't do any excavation, so how can you find something if you don't look for it?
And a first fuel, can you tell us what first fuel ignited means?
Means the first, well, when we talk about fuel, it's fuel load. It doesn't have to be a flammable or combustible liquid. Could be your clothing, could be something that's not a hard piece of wood. Something has to have an ignition that can be a chain of ignitability to start burning everything else. But simple household furnishings and things like that.
Okay, so in simple terms, it's the first thing that catches fire?
Yes,
All right. Do you also have to, well, we talked about you have to tell us how the ignition source and the first thing that caught fire actually came together.
sure, because there's all kind of ignition sources here and all kind of flammable or fuel, but you and I are all fuel, and if there's no ignition source and no, well, say there is an ignition source, say something is burning in this room, but you need to find out how that came together to burn one of us, basically.
Okay. And if you can't find all three things that we talked about, you have to determine, in terms of a cause, you have to say it's what?
It's undetermined. You can't, if you don't have any of those things or part of those things, how can you come to a definitive conclusion and say it is accidental and or incendiary?
And if you don't have a cause of a fire, can you classify a fire?
The only classification, it comes under classification, is undetermined.
Okay. Can you describe the four classifications for us?
Well, I usually think there's only three, but there's one that's called natural, which I always put as accidental, like the act of God, lightning, earthquake, things of that nature is a natural fire. Fire that's accidental obviously speaks for itself. A careless cook on a stove, any number of things that can be done accidentally without having any intent to do anything wrong. And the other one is an intentional act. An incendiary fire is an intentional act to cause a fire where it's not supposed to be caused.
And only one supports a crime?
Yes,
Would that be an incendiary fire?
yes.
And given that Mr. Leroy didn't do the fundamental excavation to find the evidence, what level of trust do you put in any of his opinions?
Well, because things weren't done like they need to be done, no matter for what reason, you can't really then opine that you have anything but an unintentional or an undetermined fire. You can't say one way or the other whether it's accidental or incendiary if you don't do the job to finish what you need to do to get that information.
So, in your expert opinion, let's start with the origin, given that you said he didn't adequately consider the chimney chase for one. What trust do you have in his opinion that the living room is the area of origin?
I don't have any, because if the fire started in the chimney chase and then extended to the living room, there is no way of telling the difference because of the destruction of the property. It's too badly burned, and that hypothesis, particularly of the chimney chase, as I say, Mr. Leroy actually gave a whole page and a half of his definition how it would happen, but he says it couldn't by no other reason.
And now, how would you determine, forget the origin now, going to the cause, what classification is the only one that you could come to given the evidence in this case?
Certainly, if you had no evidence of where the fire actually originated, it would certainly be even more so impossible to determine a cause. You can have to put a label on something that you're saying, well, how? And if you haven't got the answer to the first one, you certainly can't have the answer to the second one.
So that classification would only have to be,
Undetermined.
all right. Do you place a lot of importance and weight on what classification you're going to give to a fire when you're doing your analysis?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Because what you're saying, particularly, well, in any circumstance, if you say the fire is accidental and it might affect another family member, and because you did something stupid, for example, you set up a situation between people that aren't very good, and if you made a wrong determination even for that, you might cause family strife. If you call something incendiary, that is something that's so important to make sure you have the right call, because you alter people's lives, you change people's lives.
Objection, Your Honor, I don't think he can testify to this. This is well outside the scope of expert opinion.
He is an expert, and this is the kind of thing he considers when coming to a determination of a classification, because there are ramifications. That's what he's testifying to.
Thank you. I think the jury understands that. I'm going to sustain the objection.
Let's talk about Mr. Leroy's causation issues with respect to time of day, two able-bodied people, and an abnormally fast fire. We talked about the abnormally fast fire, right?
Yes.
All right. Do you recall Mr. Leroy testifying in the course of this case that the cause of the fire was because of the time of the day and two able-bodied people were in the house, only one survived?
Yes, I recall that.
Can you show us 921, the book?
I can show you 921, but you're not going to find anything like that in the book.
Are you going to find that in any book?
No.
Are you going to find that with any credible source or authority in the fire investigation business?
None.
How about the idea of two able-bodied people? That was the time of day. Two able-bodied people. Do able-bodied people die in accidental fires?
Able-bodied people die in fires, get out of fires, but that is not anything to do with origin and causation of fire.
Okay. What is your opinion as to the quality of Mr. Leroy's opinion about that?
Well, he's totally in error, and he never learned that in school. If he did, we need a new school.